Welcome to Index Red Orbital Supremacy. This series exists to expose how emerging space technologies are not neutral commercial ventures, but tools of statecraft, militarization, and elite control. It's about unmasking the next phase of global power projection, not with tanks or aircraft carriers, but with launch infrastructure, orbital dominance, and surveillance supremacy. China and the US are locked in a covert arms race above the atmosphere, and the public is being sold the illusion of peaceful innovation. Each entry in the series will peel back another layer of that illusion, showing how Maglev launchpads, satellite constellations, hypersonic planes, and AI-driven orbital systems are being framed as progress while being built for total control. It's a series for people who sense that space is the new battlefield and want to understand how soft headlines and hard physics are fusing into a strategic reality no one voted for. There's no countdown, no fire, no smoke, just a sudden magnetic scream as a steel-bodied rocket sled explodes down a rail and vanishes into the sky. No engines have ignited, no fuel has burned, and yet the payload is already supersonic. In a remote corner of Sichuan province, the Chinese Communist Party is building something far more consequential than a launch pad. They're building a weaponized rail system for orbit. The public label, a project by private company Galactic Energy, aiming to revolutionize commercial launches. The truth, this is a military-civil fusion launch weapon dressed up as innovation designed to challenge and possibly surpass SpaceX, and they say it'll be operational by 2028. To understand why this matters, you have to look at what they're actually building. Galactic Energy System is a superconducting Maglev track several kilometers long, designed to launch rockets by accelerating them along a rail at speeds exceeding Mach 1. The rocket sits atop a magnetically levitated sled, which is propelled using pulsed electromagnetic fields timed to fractions of a millisecond. Once the sled reaches target velocity, over 1,200 kilometers per hour, it releases the rocket, which then ignites its engines mid-air. This launch method replaces the rocket's traditional first stage, reducing onboard propellant needs and structural mass, and allowing for increased payload capacity. The energy to power the launch comes from grid-fed capacitors or superconducting magnetic energy storage SMES systems, delivering gigajoule-scale bursts in seconds. Imagine a rocket riding a floating skateboard that's flying down a giant metal slide. Instead of fire or engines, super powerful magnets push the board faster and faster, so fast it breaks the sound barrier. Then just before it flies off the track, the rocket takes over and blasts itself into space. The launch pad does half the work before the rocket even starts. There's a reason no one else has made this work. The idea of magnetic launch has been around for decades. NASA's Maglifter, StarTram, and military railgun programs all chased it, but every one of them hit a wall. Accelerating a multi-ton rocket to Mach 1 in seconds creates 6 to 8 grams of force. That's enough to damage delicate satellite components or stress rocket frames beyond tolerance. Releasing a rocket at Mach 1 into open air causes brutal aerodynamic pressure and shock waves. If the orientation isn't perfect, the rocket could tumble or shatter. The magnetic fields required to accelerate the sled can induce currents in onboard systems, risking avionics failure. And the pulsed magnets have to sync perfectly with the sled's speed. A mistimed pulse at Mach speeds can destroy everything. Think of trying to throw a fragile toy airplane off a roller coaster going 700 miles an hour. If you mess up the angle, it crashes. If you shake it too hard, it breaks. If there's too much electricity nearby, its remote control stops working. That's what this rocket has to survive. So why is China doing it anyway? Because this isn't just about launching satellites, it's about shifting the balance of power. The private label slapped on Galactic Energy doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Their Maglev launcher is being built in partnership with CASCIC, the Chinese state-owned defense conglomerate, and the Ziyang city government. CASIC is the same group working on hypersonics, missile tech, and kinetic anti-satellite weapons. Even more telling, a 2019 patent from the PLA Naval Engineering University describes this exact system. It lays out a Maglev rail launcher for rockets that eliminates the need for a first-stage engine, supports high-frequency launches, and lowers maintenance. This isn't civilian tech, it's military infrastructure laundered through a tech startup. Imagine the military builds a superweapon, but instead of painting it green and calling it a tank, they slap a tech company logo on it and say, it's for science. That's what's happening here. If it works, it won't just replace rocket launches, it will make them routine, daily even. China could queue up rockets like commuter trains loaded with satellites or something far worse. Anti-satellite weapons could be launched with no notice. Kinetic warheads or EMP payloads could be placed into orbit or even launched on suborbital paths to hit high-value satellites. And if they push hard enough, this system could eventually form part of a fractional orbital bombardment platform where small nukes or kinetic rods orbit the planet and drop onto targets with zero warning. It's like giving someone the ability to throw stuff into space anytime they want. Sometimes they throw a satellite, sometimes they throw a hammer. If they can throw fast enough and often enough, they control the sky. This isn't good news for SpaceX. SpaceX won the last space race with reusable rockets. But the next race isn't about flying back. It's about never needing to fly up the hard way to begin with. Galactic Energy System replaces reusability with no need for a first stage at all. And it could run off the grid, not volatile chemical fuel. If China pulls this off, they won't just beat SpaceX's cost per kilogram, they'll obliterate it. Elon Musk has contracts with NASA, the Pentagon, and Starlink's military integration, but if his model is based on rocket reusability and China just skips that entire step, Musk becomes Kodak in a digital world. Right now, Elon's company builds really smart rockets that land so they can fly again. China is trying to build a space slingshot that doesn't need the rocket to do much at all. If the slingshot works, the smart rockets won't be so special anymore. Meanwhile, Chinese state media is already declaring the Maglev launcher a world-changing innovation. Reports from SCMP and CCTV talk about launch schedules as routine as high-speed train departures, but they skip every single hard part. No mention of power storage, no discussion of mid-air ignition problems, no serious engineering papers released, just glossy footage, bold claims, and a narrative. China is inevitable. This isn't an engineering reveal, it's a psychological operation, part tech demo, part flex, part test of how far they can push the illusion. What they also don't mention is the scale of energy involved. Each launch could consume multiple gigajoules of power, on par with detonating hundreds of pounds of TNT, but channeled into electromagnetic force. That energy doesn't come cheap. Whether it's discharged from massive capacitor banks or superconducting coils, it has to be drawn, stored, and dumped in seconds. Which raises the real question. What happens when they try to launch 3 in a day? Does Sichuan dim its lights so Beijing can play spaceman? If this platform requires grid-level drawdowns to function, it may not be a marvel of engineering efficiency. It might be an orbital Tesla coil with delusions of grandeur. And then there's the language they don't translate. The 2019 patent filed by the PLA Naval Engineering University didn't just describe a launch system. It promised, quote, a high-frequency electromagnetic push method capable of reducing launch costs, shortening preparation time, and supporting continuous orbital deployment. That's not a product roadmap, that's a doctrine. It's the polite phrasing of a system meant for militarized persistence. And here's the bigger twist. China isn't trying to beat SpaceX. They're not fighting to make rockets cheaper or land more boosters. They're trying to delete the booster entirely. While Musk perfects reusability, China is gunning for irrelevance. This isn't about improving the launch paradigm. It's about replacing it. They're not racing us. They're racing past us. China is showing off a space launcher like it's already finished, but they're skipping the hard parts in the story. It's like a magician doing a trick, but not showing you how hard it is behind the curtain. Make no mistake, this isn't a science experiment. It's a geopolitical weapon. If this system reaches operational status by 2028, the rules of launch, economics, orbital warfare, and space dominance will be rewritten. America invented the idea, China built it first, and they're doing it with military hands wearing civilian gloves. This isn't just about rockets, it's about who gets to leave Earth and who gets to decide what happens when they do. Welcome to the railgun era.